Hi there Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk Bounty video. Welcome to episode 166 of Ask Bossk Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday, where I take your questions from the comment section below and do my best to answer them. So if you do have a question for next week's episode and you want to be featured on the video, leave that question in the comment section below and hopefully I'll get round to it next week. If you do happen to enjoy the video, don't forget to drop a like down below because that really helps the video and the channel. Subscribe if you're new. We are only maybe 90 subscribers away from 25,000 now, which is awesome. So subscribe if you are new to the channel to help me get to that 25k. I want to thank everybody that tuned in and that was in the chat for the live stream that we did last night. We had John from the SWTVC, Nick from N-1 Kenobi, and Christian from Smuggler's Canyon, and we completed the March Madness bracket. That live stream was just us completing the bracket, and of course the voting for the actual proper bracket commences on Monday, and I will leave a link in the description below for where you will be able to vote for your figures on Monday. I'm not 100% sure at this moment in time how it's all going to work out, but if you follow the link, I'm pretty sure it will take you to somewhere where the SWTVC guys will be, you know, putting up the matchups each time for each figure. So yeah, I just want to thank the guys for being guests on the live stream and you guys for being in the chat. So thank you so much. Now, with all that being said, let's get on to the first question of the week. Rob Ernest says, great vid as always, BB, and happy to hear you're feeling better. Two-part question for next week. Are there non-TVC figs of characters in other modern lines that you have that are integrated into your collection because the likelihood of them ever appearing in TVC is extremely low? Also, are there figs of characters from other lines you're holding off on acquiring because you feel it's inevitable that they will be made for TVC? Keep up the excellent content. So yeah, to answer that question, I do have many figures from other lines. It's not just TVC, and many of them I put in my barge. So they do tend to be like figures from the Cantina, or, you know, perhaps Jabba's goons that we don't have yet. Like you can see Ula there. You can see a couple from the Cantina. More from the Cantina there. And it's really because of a space issue for me, really. I don't have much space at the moment for all of my figures, and I certainly don't have space to set up a Cantina. So as they're always like weird aliens and things like that, then I tend to put them on or in my barge. So up there you'll see there's the Nikto Gunner. He's from the Legacy Collection. You've got a couple there from the, what's that, the Power of the Jedi. She's from the Legacy Collection. So, you know, I've got a mix of different lines that I've just sort of put together on my barge, because I think, you know, in Jabba's sail barge there were so many like different aliens and stuff like that. So that's where I've put them for the moment. But as soon as I get a bit more space, then I do want to set up a Cantina and separate them from the Jabba's goons. But yeah, hope that answers your question. And man, isn't the barge awesome? The barge is so awesome. Oh look, got a Retro Collection Bossk there just laying there. He seems to have fallen over. This is the problem I have with space at the moment. And just up there we have the skiff hanging over, looking over there. So that's pretty awesome. So there you go. And to answer the second part of that question, is there anything that I'm holding off? Not really, no. I mean, if something came up that I felt that I needed to complete a scene or whatever, and that's the only way I'm going to get that character, then I will look at previous lines. I think that's the only way you can really do it. If we're going to be waiting for every character to come out in the Vintage Collection, we're going to be waiting a pretty long time. So yeah, the ones that I showed you on the barge there, you know, some of those Cantina dudes, I don't think we'll ever get them again. So that's our only option. Robot Western says, hey Tim, been loving the content for years now. Thank you, buddy. My question is, what would be the best BB-8 figure to go with the Vintage Collection Poe Dameron X-Wing? Thank you for keeping the love for TVC alive. So I can't 100% remember which one I used when I reviewed the Poe Dameron's X-Wing, but I think it was the one that came in that Takodana set. I'm pretty sure that most of the 3.75 inch BB-8s that we've had have all been the same, basically, except for the one from the Disney parks. But anything Hasbro related, I'm pretty sure they're all the same. They came out in various different packs. There was like a solo 2-pack or 3-pack with I think it was Rose in disguise, and maybe that was also packed in like Last Jedi packaging. There's a few different ways of getting that BB-8, and as far as I remember, he actually fit quite well in the back of the Poe Dameron X-Wing. Rob Mack says, hey BB, another Sunday well spent. Thanks for the video. I have a question for next week. If you had the opportunity to get your chosen figures autographed, Where would you have them sign? On the bubble or on the card itself? I was originally thinking the bubble would be the best place, but then I got thinking, what if down the line, in say 10 years, the paint pen started to come off of the bubble? On the flip side, if I get the signature on the card, it might not stand out as well. So I have this one here. This is the Bespin security guard, Isdam Edian, and it was signed by a guy called Quinton Pierre at one of the most recent Echoes that I went to. And yeah, I'm getting into these autograph cards. I've got Salt Murray card back, basically signed by the guy that played Yakface. I also have Tim Rose's autograph on an Admiral Akbar vintage collection card. And what I tend to do is I tend to get them graded once I've got them done, because that does protect it. But in terms of your question, I always go for, you know, the autograph on the actual card. If I can just get the light on there. I just think it looks better. I don't like obscuring the figure itself. And as long as you get a pen that sort of, you know, is different colour to the background, then it often stands out pretty well. Like you could get silver. This one was a nice blue sort of paint pen, which came out really well because it matches the, you know, the name pill and the panel behind the bubble there. I absolutely love that. So yeah, that's what I tend to do. Yeah, I'm not a fan of putting it on the bubble. Christopher Barton says, great episode as always, boss. Question for next week. Do you think the Jabeam Obi-Wan we're getting in the announced 2-pack could be used as a good Jedi body template going forward? To be honest, you know, obviously we don't have any details about that yet, so it's hard to sort of talk about that because it could be a reuse or it could be new. If it's new, then hopefully, you know, that's going to be like the Jedi buck that they can use for lots of other Jedi. I've put these two here just to show you the sort of differences. You know, the Luke, a lot of that Luke is new, and obviously this is the Legacy Collection Obi-Wan, but it just shows you, like with this Luke, you know, could they potentially use that sculpt for other Jedis, potentially if they painted it like brown or tan or something? Who knows, man, who knows? So it will be interesting to see what they do with that Obi-Wan and whether it's going to be something that can be reused in the future. I personally think they'll probably try and reuse something that we've already got, but I really do not want them to go back as far as the Mace Windu that they've reissued. I think we need to move on from that. So I'm hoping it's going to be something new. But we'll just have to wait and see, buddy. We just don't have any more information on it at the moment. Douglas Wallace says, is the Ned-B and Purge Trooper Black Series Carbonized 2-pack for $74.99 US the most astonishingly bad Hasbro release you've ever seen? I'm not too sure about the worst that I've ever seen, because there's been some bad ones, but I think it's right up there. I mean, it didn't really affect me because I'm not a Black Series collector, so I didn't really look at it too closely. And in fact, I only found out that they were carbonized after I posted them on my social media. I just thought it was a 2-pack that people might want. So I put it on my social medias that it was revealed or whatever. But, you know, they're carbonized, a Purge Trooper and a Ned-B. They're not for me, wrong scale for me anyway. But, you know, that Ned-B is an all-new sculpt. It's going to have cost them a lot of money to make that, and they are going to want to make their money back on it somehow. And I would imagine just the sales of the original Ned-B probably aren't enough in their eyes. So the easiest thing for them to do is carbonize it or credit collection it, stick it in these 2-packs as an exclusive. You know, collectors aren't going to like it, but I think I've probably seen worse, to be honest. I can't think of anything offhand, but there's been some bad ones over the years, man. But this one is right up there, no doubt about it. I mean, if that was in TVC, I'd be pretty annoyed. I wouldn't want it, and it would be one of those things like, you know, they're tempting you with something because you're a completionist or whatever. So Martin Creddy says, hi Bossk, I'm fairly new to collecting the TVC line. Any advice for new collectors? I'm finding it difficult to get older items without paying extortionate prices. This is a problem. Things go up in value over the years, and if you've come in late and you want to get the older releases, sometimes you are going to have to pay a little bit more to get those. My advice to you is to shop around, be patient, look on eBay. There's often deals on eBay, but more importantly, join some of the Facebook groups, because people sell in there under the value of eBay because there's no fees involved and things like that, and often you can get a bargain on there. Collectors helping collectors, that kind of stuff. So that's my advice. Geek Strong says, hey brother, great videos. Question, do you think with all the new media and Hasbro not being able to keep up with the demand of new characters and playsets, do you think too much media will eventually be the fall of Hasbro Star Wars? Sometimes too much of something is a bad thing. I know a lot of collectors are getting frustrated with Hasbro. So yeah, certainly the amount of new media that we're getting does stretch things. If you think about when they used to bring out a film every 3 years, the toy companies could basically get out most of the figures and things like that, and now we're getting new show after new show, and it's literally impossible for Hasbro to keep up. Will it be the fall of Hasbro Star Wars? I doubt it. No, I think we're still going to be buying the stuff that they put out. It's just that we want more, and we want things that are more connected together. You know, you want the complete crew and things like that from certain shows and what have you, and that's unfortunately where they're stretching it too thin. But there's not really a lot that we can do about it, unfortunately. Hyperspace K says, hey boss, question for next week. Is the Endor Luke the same as the final dual Luke beside the head sculpt and the poncho? Is the body sculpt the same? I only have the Endor Luke and he seems super skinny. So let's have a look, shall we? So here's the Endor Luke, which came out through the 50th anniversary of Lucasfilm, and this is a really damaged card of a Endor Capture. This is the original release, VC23. You can see it's got a slightly yellow bubble. We've got a bit of a crease there, so let's just open it then, because the one that I opened originally of this, my loose version, like a lot of my figures, went to my son. He took that. So you can see the tray's gone yellow. We'll just keep the lightsaber out for a second. So yeah, he is a little bit skinny, this figure, but I still think it's a pretty good figure. Now let's have a look at this guy. Same legs, exactly the same body. Yep, I remember reviewing this guy. If you check out my review for the Endor Luke, I think I say in that video that this basically is, you know, the exact same figure underneath. So there you go. What might be quite cool is if you take the head off of this guy and put him on that one, if it fits. That would be pretty awesome. But yeah, there you go. I can confirm that it is the same figure. Morgan Poke says, hey boss, question for next week. Do you think the Vintage Collection Wrecker will be a deluxe figure in the same style as Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka Mando Season 2? I think this is the fear around the Wrecker figure, and the fact that, you know, if we're going to get all the other Bad Batch on cards and then they suddenly bring out Wrecker in like a deluxe box or whatever, you know, he's going to be a big figure. I would imagine that's probably the route that Hasbro will go when they finally do him. And that worries me slightly, especially for people that really, really want the Bad Batch that are carded collectors. You know, we've seen Hunter, we're getting him. There's others that are rumoured. I'm sure they'll do the whole crew eventually. And I just think it'll look a bit jarring on the wall with all your figures if you've got, you know, most of the crew on cards and then you've got that one figure in a deluxe box. For loose collectors, it probably won't matter. But, you know, the Black Series didn't really have that problem because their deluxe figures are in the same style boxes. They're just a bit bigger, aren't they, or whatever, but they still have that mural on the side. They still fit in with the rest of the line. With the Vintage Collection's a little bit different with these deluxe figures. And Jawa Merchant says, question for next week. With the upcoming Mando N-1 Starfighter, do you think they will add a pack-in figure? And what character do you think they will use? Mando with a soft cape, Grogu, R5-D4, or all of them? I hope it comes with a loose R5-D4 and perhaps later they could release him on card. Yeah, this is an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think, obviously, we've got the N1 pipeline now. We can all talk about it. It's the worst kept secret going. But, yeah, it's out there now. It's been pipelined. And I think Jason from Yakface has confirmed that it is going to be coming with a packed-in figure, although we don't know what that is yet. My hope would be that it would be Peli Motto. And I think if it is Peli Motto, I think she would be like a reuse of maybe Rose Tico or something. It's probably not perfect, but I think the body would just about do. And I think they probably won't card the figure that's in the N1 either. That's just my personal opinion, and I think it just follows how Hasbro is sort of treating these things these days. If you look at the AT-ST, the Chewbacca, he did not come carded, and I think it's because they don't want to put a carded figure in a expensive set. You know, it's almost like firewalling it for the carded collectors. When it comes to R5-D4, I personally don't think that one will be packed in, and I think they'll maybe use that as an opportunity to maybe even get this one out again, like a straight reissue of this one to go with the N1. But maybe they'll just use the figure and recard it, because it's from a different entertainment. Often what they do is recard them on different card backs. We've seen them do it a couple of times before. So use that same figure if that's what they're going to do, and then just put him on either a Book of Boba Fett or Mandalorian card. We all know, judging from the Mando Season 3 trailers, that the droid that Mando gets is R5D4 in the back of the N1. So that's just my personal opinion on it. I could be completely wrong, but I feel that's probably the route they'll go down. And Fatmatic says, what's up, Bossk? How are you and your family? Here's my question for next week. Do you like the price for Din's N1? Too much? About right? What's your thoughts? Keep on bringing on the awesome content later. First of all, thank you so much for asking how I am and my family. We're very well. Thank you very much, buddy. In terms of the price, do I like it? No, I don't. I mean, I'm never gonna say I like the price, because I think everything that's coming out of Hasbro Star Wars, whether it's 6-inch or 3.75 vintage collection, is somewhat overpriced. I think we can all agree on that. I would much prefer that N1 to be around the $89.99 price point rather than $129 or whatever it's going to be. The fact that the news that it has got a packed in figure sort of softens the blow ever so slightly, but I still think it's overpriced, especially when we don't really know what they're going to be doing with that N1 yet. You know, are they going to be reusing any of the previous molds from the N1 Starfighter, the Naboo one? We don't know. Or is it going to be completely new? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I can't say that I like the price, no. J-Man22 says, great to see you back. Question for next week. Do you think we'll get a new Anakin and Obi-Wan figures in 2025 for the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith? Kind of like how they did for Attack of the Clones. So I think that would probably be the perfect year to do them in, if they were going to do them. I can't see much else coming out from Revenge of the Sith except for clone repaints. Just purely because of all the other media that they've got to put out, and they always like to sprinkle in original trilogy as well. They don't really do too much from the prequels, do they? But in terms of new Anakin and Obi-Wan, I think they're needed, and it goes back to the questions about, you know, the Obi-Wan Jabim figure, whether that's going to be new. I think we desperately need a new Jedi that they can sort of, you know, kit bash from, basically. We need that sort of base Jedi, but we'll have to wait and see what they do. John Rodrigo says, hi BB, as always, great in-depth reviews. Question for next week. Your thought process on a lot of what Hasbro should be doing seems right on point. Thank you. Now that you have a pretty large number of subscribers, 25k, have they reached out to you for a little consulting work? You could really guide them in the right direction. I feel like you're a voice for many of us common folk collectors. Cheers. Well, I appreciate that, buddy. No, they've never reached out for, you know, that sort of thing. Obviously, I get the press images and things like that, and then very occasionally they might send a box of figures that I've already got. You know, if there's a convention or something happening, they might send something like that. But in terms of like contacting me for my input on anything about that, it's a no. They've never done that. And would I like them to do that? I guess I would like to have some kind of input with other people. I don't think it should ever be down to like one or two people. I think it should be a bunch of people if they're ever going to be advised on things like that, to get a good sort of general consensus of what's wanted and needed for the vintage collection. And you know, I only ever want the health of the line to be in a good place, because then we get most of the stuff that we want, basically. But no, that's never happened, buddy. Dan Tween says, my question would be, how many retro collection figures can they make as opposed to TVC, budgetary wise, as they are easier to make, design, articulation, paint apps, etc., and the price point at retail is not that far apart. It's sadly a no-brainer for Hasbro to make 10 retro figures in place of one TVC. Do you think that it's that sort of difference? Yeah, I wouldn't know in terms of like how much it costs to make a retro collection figure versus a vintage collection figure. All I do know is that it is a big difference. How many they could make of retro compared to one TVC, I don't know. But I think, you know, you can see how much they're pushing the retro collection, and they're making new media figures for the retro collection, figures that we haven't even got in the vintage collection. And that is the worrying part for me, because it's much, much easier for them, as you say, to just do all the design, the articulation, 5 POA, very sort of dumbed down, basic looking figures, very small amount of paint apps. They can knock those out till the cows come home, and as you say, charge nearly the same amount as a vintage collection figure. So I think we've got to watch what they're doing. You know, when we're saying about, you know, having a war against the retro collection, I think that was a question from last week. You know, it's not about that, but I think we just need to watch out what they're doing here, because if you remember, they said, you know, the 5 POA line is going away, and we're just going to be concentrating on, you know, super articulated, highly detailed figures for the adult collector. Well, 5POA is alive and well. It's crept back in the form of retro collection figures. They're no longer doing just the ones from Kenner that were released back in the day. They are now giving us new media retro collection figures, and for me, that is a big worry. Alright then guys, that's it for this week's episode. As I mentioned before, if you do have a question for next week's episode, be sure to leave it in the comment section below and hopefully you'll be featured next week. A big thank you for watching. A big thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members. Your support means a great deal to me and helps me make more and better videos. If you want to become a Patreon supporter or channel member, the links are in the description below. Once again, thank you all for being on the live stream last night. It was awesome. And we shall see you on the next one.